We all have certain songs from our past that will always hold a special meaning because of the time in our lives when they were released, or because the lyrics are related to events that maybe took place in our lives. But some songs from days gone by have not held up very well, either because of changes in the political climate or because the lyrics are no longer seen as tolerable. Number 10. Pat Travers made a name for himself in the music industry during the 1970s, thanks to his high-energy live performances, bluesy vocals, and his ability on guitar. His first major breakthrough came in 1970, when he released the live album called Live, Go For What You Know, which contained a cover of a song by Stan Lewis. This song has since caused quite a bit of controversy, as people started realizing the true meaning behind it, and there's no doubt that if it were released today, it would cause even more of a stir. Nevertheless, Travers and his group of musicians have remained as popular as ever, as they continue to tour and deliver what many people have described as some of the best live performances they've ever seen. He started playing the guitar when he was 14 years old, and after attending a Jimi Hendrix concert, he was inspired to pursue music as a career. He joined several bands while still a teenager, and together they played in clubs across Quebec. He caught the eye of rocker Ronnie Hawkins, who invited Travers to go on tour with him as his lead guitarist, but after a year on the road, he decided to start playing his own music and relocated to London. Once there, he recorded his first demo, and this led to his first recording contract with Polydor Records. He released his debut album, Pat Travers, in 1976, and then embarked on a tour of England, setting in motion a successful career that would last for decades to come. Before long, he was considered by many of his fans as a guitar hero, and he started accumulating a massive fan base. But in modern times, many people have questioned his decision to cover the Stan Lewis song Boom Boom Out Go the Lights, due to the subject matter of the lyrics. The track was written by Lewis and recorded by another harmonica player, Little Walter, in 1957, and at the time, no one seemed to notice that it was about spousal abuse. Some people believed it was about the lights being switched on and off during a concert in a stadium, but the truth is far darker. The very first verse in the song reads, "No kiddin', I'm ready to fight. I've been looking for my baby all night. If I get her in my sight, boom, right here, out go the lights." This makes it pretty obvious what the song is about, and one wonders how this could have ever been misconstrued as being about anything else. What makes matters worse is the reason why the writer of the lyrics is looking to do this. In the third verse, it's revealed that the woman in question wanted out of the relationship that she was in, and this made the man in question madder than he's ever been in his life, which somehow prompted him to look for her so that he could assault her until she lost consciousness, hence the part that reads, "Out go the lights." While these lyrics may not have caused much of a fuss back in the 70s, they've come under fire in modern times for being misogynistic and promoting violence against women. Number 9. The Beatles remains one of the most famous rock and roll bands of all time, and likely will remain so for many decades to come. The band was formed in Liverpool, England in 1962, when Ringo Starr, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison decided to start making music together, and what followed forever changed the way people looked at popular music. At first, the band opted for a pop style, with songs such as She Loves You and I Saw Her Standing There, but they soon changed their sound as they became more adept at playing their instruments and looked to incorporate more meaningful lyrics into their songs. Before long, other types of music started influencing their sound, including folk, country, psychedelia, and love ballads. The band's career together spanned just 7 years, but during that time, they released 12 studio albums and left behind a legacy that's still very much alive today. Many of the most famous artists and bands of the modern era have stated that they would have never followed a career in music or reached the success they did were it not for the fact that they were influenced by the Beatles and their iconic sound. Their songs are still played by radio stations around the world today, and while Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney are the only surviving members, their record sales are still sky high and show no signs of slowing down. Most of their songs have an upbeat feel, with positive lyrics about love, life, and everything in between. But one track seems to go the opposite way, and it's likely because of this that John Lennon, its author, stated that he never enjoyed playing it, and it was by far his least favorite of all the songs that they had written. The song in question is entitled Run for Your Life, and it was inspired by an Elvis Presley song, which was in turn written about another artist called Arthur Gunter. The Elvis Presley song was called Baby Let's Play House, and was inspired by a country song written by Cy Coben called I Want to Play House With You, which was then recorded by Eddie Arnold. The original song's lyrics make it obvious that the singer wants to move in with the woman he loves, a romantic sentiment, but Run for Your Life takes a much darker turn, as it centers on the subject of jealousy and a possessive nature. Lennon decided to reuse the lyrics that Presley sang in his version, and while they may have gone unnoticed back then, they've angered many people who now realize what the song was really about and how dark the subject matter really is. Again, the lyrics are very straightforward, and it's hard to understand why they're only now causing offense, since they clearly state, "Try to understand, I'd rather see you dead than to be with another man." There's no ambiguity in these words, and it's obvious that a man has grown jealous after his girlfriend left him. Rather than letting her go and continuing on with his life, he decides that he'd rather end her life than see her happy with someone else. Number 8. During her music career, Amy Winehouse became a favorite of tabloid magazines and gossip websites, thanks to her struggles with addiction and alcohol, paired with several tempestuous relationships that played out before the eyes of the public. Amy grew up in London and was raised by her mother, after her parents got divorced when she was 9 years old. From a young age, she showed signs of her rebellious nature, as she was expelled from the Sylvia Young Theatre School for wearing a nose ring, something that was strictly forbidden. Nevertheless, the incident did little to curb her love for the arts, and she started studying at the Brit School, which is a prestigious school for the performing arts. She showed an interest in jazz, and at the age of 16 joined a jazz band. This sound remained an influence throughout her career, and in 2003, she released her debut album called Frank. One of the tracks from the album, Stronger Than Me, won a Novello Award, but she stated on many occasions that she was not fond of the album, and didn't even own a copy of it. Her second album, Back to Black, was heavily inspired by her relationship with Blake Fielder Civil. The couple would break up and get back together on several occasions, and by this time, it had become obvious that she was struggling with an addiction to illegal substances and alcohol. Hence, the inclusion of the track Rehab came as no surprise, but her fans were taken aback when she started making appearances in the aftermath of the record's success, since she looked very different than she had in the past. She now had many tattoos and had lost a lot of weight, leaving her looking emaciated and weak. Speculation started to run rife that she was sick, or that she was struggling with mental health issues, but in reality, Winehouse was slowly succumbing to her addictions. She and Fielder Civil got married in 2007, but from there, things only got worse. She started behaving strangely and was forced to cancel many of her performances as she continued on with her reliance to substances. She'd now been diagnosed with bulimia, and when she made it to her shows, she was often too inebriated to perform properly. She was arrested in Norway after it was discovered she was carrying an illegal substance, and Fielder Civil was arrested for getting into an altercation with someone in a bar. Nevertheless, Back to Black won 5 Grammy Awards, but Winehouse had to appear remotely, since she was unable to obtain a visa after being caught on camera ingesting an illegal substance. Ironically, one of the songs that won a Grammy was the track Rehab, in which Winehouse expresses her refusal to seek help at a rehabilitation center, despite being urged to do so by her loved ones. She eventually relented, and after realizing she wouldn't live much longer if she continued the way she was, she decided to enter a rehab facility. But she only remained there for a short time, and as soon as she left, her old habits returned. She and Fielder Civil got divorced in 2009, and she then started planning a comeback tour in 2011 that was highly anticipated by many of her fans. She'd been given a second chance, but failed to take advantage of it, since at the very first show, she was heavily intoxicated, and the remainder of the dates were canceled. Just a month later, she was found unresponsive, and she was declared deceased, having suffered from alcohol poisoning. Number 7. Sometimes a song is recorded with the best intentions, since it's aimed at helping someone in an unthinkable situation. And while it's popular at the time, it's later labeled as offensive and naive, as is the case with the song Do They Know It's Christmas, which was performed by the Live Aid Collective. The idea for the song came to light through a series of news reports in 1983. At the time, the people of Ethiopia were in dire need of aid as famine had broken out, and the images and reports that were being broadcast on the news in Britain left people shocked. Schools started raising funds and sending packaged food to the region. Churches held bake sales to raise money for the cause. And two people, singer Bob Geldof and his wife at the time, TV presenter Paula Yates, decided to do something more substantial, since they were deeply affected by what they saw on the news. At the time, Ethiopia was experiencing a severe drought, and thanks to that country's government's failure to act accordingly, its citizens started to starve since they were unable to grow crops and their livestock could no longer survive. To make matters worse, the country was rife with political instability, and when the government eventually decided to intervene, they were woefully underprepared to help the 8 million people who no longer had any food to eat or water to drink. Geldof and Midge Yor decided to start a relief effort of their own, and they contacted every musician that they knew, asking them to perform in a group that became known as Live Aid. At first, it was decided that they'd record a cover of a popular song together, but issues with the rights to the song soon cropped up, and so it was decided that a new song had to be written from scratch. Hence, Do They Know It's Christmas was born. Time was of the essence, since the track had to be released to the public before Christmas that year, if it were to have the desired effect, and luckily many prominent artists decided to join the effort. This included Sting, George Michael, Paul Weller, Phil Collins, members of Duran Duran, Boy George, Bono from U2, and many others. Paul Young sang the song's opening lines, a task that was originally given to David Bowie, but when Bowie couldn't make it to the studio in time, Young stepped up. Once the song was recorded, an accompanying music video was released, and the people of the world were urged to buy the single since all the proceeds would be donated to the hunger relief effort in Ethiopia. £8 million were raised in the first year after the song's release, and it became the fastest-selling single in the history of the UK charts. There's no doubt that this money brought some relief to the people of Ethiopia, but it's since been criticized as being naive and damaging. People feel that it only focused on the Ethiopian struggle, while other African countries were in similar situations, with no relief being offered. Furthermore, no one explained to the public what the cause of the famine was, and the track painted all of Africa in the same light, when some countries on that continent weren't thriving. While there's no doubt that the song helped bring some relief to the region, efforts are now being made to establish long-term solutions in an effort to bring the terrible conditions in Ethiopia to an end. Number 6. The Rolling Stones is without a doubt one of the longest existing rock bands of all time. The group, which currently consists of members Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood, and replacement drummer Steve Jordan, released their first album in 1964 and have been going strong ever since. They've amassed a huge fan base, resulting in millions of albums sold over the years. And surprisingly, they're still touring today, more than 60 years after the band was first formed, and they're still performing in sold-out stadiums. While they were still students in London, Jagger, Richards, Brian Jones, Charlie Watts, and Bill Wyman decided to form a band, and in the early days, their sound was likened to the bluesy type of music that was being played around Chicago at the time. Just 3 years later, they'd already seen a lot of success, and had become just as popular as the Beatles. But the difference between the two bands was easily noticeable, as the Rolling Stones came across as more aggressive and intimidating, and presented an air of rebellion, whereas the Beatles grew ever softer as the years passed by. They were often harassed by the police and media, as rumors of illegal substance abuse abounded, along with their penchant for alcohol, but this had no effect as they refused to change, a factor that only endeared them even further to their fans. They released their first album, containing only original material, named Aftermath in 1966, and it was a massive hit. Their singles Satisfaction and Paint It Black were released in close succession, ensuring the band's status as a powerhouse rock ensemble at the time. By the turn of the decade, the Beatles had decided to call it quits, and the Rolling Stones became the foremost rock band of all time. In the decades that followed, they showed few signs of slowing down, and today they remain one of the most famous musical acts of all time. But one of their songs from the album Aftermath has now been criticized for its lyrics, which have not stood the test of time. The song is entitled Under My Thumb, and while it drew some criticism from feminist groups at the time of its release, many people have now condemned its lyrics, since it tells the story of a woman who's being controlled by her partner. It describes a woman who used to be very pushy and controlling towards her boyfriend, but he manages to flip the script, as is evidenced by lyrics such as "It's down to me," the difference in the clothes she wears, and "Under my thumb, a girl who has changed her ways." It continues, quote, "It's down to me, the way she does just what she's told. The change has come, she's under my thumb." Jagger defended the song, stating it was written as a tongue-in-cheek track, and it was in no way anti-feminist. But critics have stated that it's clear to see that these lyrics no longer have a place in modern society. Number 5. To say that Taylor Swift is a popular musician would be a massive understatement. She's broken the world record for the highest-grossing concert tour of all time, earning as much as $2 billion during her Global Eras tour. She sold more than 114 million albums worldwide and has cemented herself as one of the greatest pop stars of all time. Her songs have been streamed more than 70 billion times on different streaming platforms, and that number only grows every day. Swift showed an interest in performing from an early age, as she first acted in children's theater productions before singing the Star-Spangled Banner at the Philadelphia 76ers basketball game in front of a capacity crowd. She then took an interest in playing the guitar and started composing her first original songs after taking inspiration from her musical idols, Shania Twain and the Dixie Chicks. She eventually landed her first recording contract with Sony in 2004 and started performing in the Nashville area. Her self-titled debut album was released when she was just 16, and by 2007, it had sold more than 1 million copies in the US alone. Her sound started to lean more towards pop music on her second album, Fearless, which was released in 2008, and it sold over 500,000 units in just the first week after its release. She gained even more international recognition when she was interrupted by rapper Kanye West during her acceptance speech at the MTV Music Video Awards, since he believed Beyoncé should have won instead. She's since won several Grammy Awards, appeared in movies, and has since gained a reputation for being very frank about her relationships and her lyrics. Her song, We're Never Getting Back Together, became her first #1 hit on the Billboard Pop Singles chart. In 2016, she and Kanye West started feuding after he included a lyric about Swift in one of his songs, and she criticized the track for being misogynistic. But some critics have pointed out that this was a hypocritical view, since she released the song Picture to Burn, which also contains a derogatory line on her 2006 debut album. Swift wrote the song in the aftermath of a breakup, and in an effort to declare her independence of her ex, she included the line which she says is now very regrettable, since it reads, "So go and tell your friends that I'm obsessive and crazy. That's fine, I'll tell mine that you're gay." She since stated that were she to write the song today, she would have approached it very differently, and that particular line has since been changed. But the original track still exists on all the physical copies of the album, and hence it can't be erased. It's since come to light that the track was written about Jordan Alford, whom Swift dated while in high school. While he didn't appreciate being painted as what he calls a redneck in the song, Alford and his wife, Chelsea, have stated that they weren't offended by the lyric, and that they instead found it rather humorous. Number 4. Most of us are familiar with the Carl Douglas song Kung Fu Fighting, which was released in 1974. It's been featured in movies, advertisements, and is often played on the radio, but it's since been called inappropriate and has resulted in the arrest of at least one person. Thanks to the song, Douglas became the first ever Jamaican-born musician to make it to the top of the charts in the US. He grew up in California and Jamaica, but relocated to England, where he studied sound engineering before starting his first band, Big Stampede, in 1964. He then moved to Spain, where he started the band The Explosions, but had little success, and he eventually decided to move back to England, where he joined a group called Gonzales. He then started working as a session musician for Pi Records, and then worked on the soundtrack for the Richard Roundtree film Embassy, which was produced by singer-songwriter Bidu. Bidu then contacted Douglas again in 1974, when he was searching for a vocalist to perform on the Larry Weiss song, I Want to Give You My Everything. And needing another song to fill the album, the pair quickly finished a song that Douglas had written about the kung fu phase that was sweeping across the world at the time in the aftermath of the Bruce Lee film Enter the Dragon. The result was the song Kung Fu Fighting, which was recorded in just 10 minutes, and at the time neither man could have foreseen that it would become as popular as it did, or that it would later be hailed as insensitive. As the album was released, Kung Fu Fighting shot to the top of the charts in the UK and eventually in the US. It quickly went on to sell 9 million copies around the world. In an effort to cash in further on the track's success, Pi Records released a follow-up called Dance the Kung Fu, but it failed to impress and is widely considered to have been a complete failure. Unfortunately, this caused Douglas to be considered nothing more than a novelty act, but he did go on to see further moderate success. He released the album Love, Peace, and Happiness in 1979, and Keep Pleasing Me 4 years later, but none of the songs made it further than the top 40 in the charts, and eventually Douglas relocated to Germany, where he established a production company, which works with film and advertisements. But in recent times, the song Kung Fu Fighting has been criticized as being racially insensitive, not only because of some of the lyrics, but because it contains a certain melody that's considered insensitive towards Asian people. While most of the song highlights the amazing abilities of kung fu fighters, in his naivety, Douglas decided to use a few stereotypical names in the lyrics, including Billy Chin and Sammy Chung, which has drawn criticism from a lot of people. Furthermore, in 2011, a singer called Simon Ledger was performing for Easter Sunday in a pub on the Isle of Wight in England, and during the festivities, he decided to play Kung Fu Fighting, since it's still a popular track. But halfway through his performance, he was approached by a Chinese couple who started yelling at him to stop singing. The couple was asked to leave since they were using foul language in a venue where children were present, but they then contacted the police. Ironically, Ledger was then arrested while having dinner at a Chinese restaurant later on after the complainant accused him of being racially abusive. He was later released after CCTV footage of the incident was reviewed, and nothing untoward was found. But many people still feel that the song should no longer be performed, since it could easily result in more people taking offense. Number 3. Adam Levine is best known as the singer of the popular pop rock band Maroon 5, though he's gained further recognition for his role as a vocal coach on the TV singing contest called The Voice. In 2014, he married Namibian model Behati Prinsloo, and that same year, Maroon 5 recorded a song, It Was Always You, which is widely considered to be about her. The lyrics tell the tale of a man who's good friends with a woman, and who eventually realizes that she's the one that he's meant to be with, having been there the entire time. But in 2022, Levine became embroiled in a scandal that left many of the band's fans shocked. It all started with a TikTok video that was posted by Instagram model Sumner Stroh, in which she revealed that she and Levine had at one point had an affair that lasted about a year. To prove that she was being truthful, she included screenshots of conversations that they'd had in their Instagram DMs, and pointed out that after the affair was over, he continued to message her. She added that she originally had no intention of revealing the affair, but after one of her friends got a hold of the screenshots, they threatened to sell them to a tabloid outlet, and Stroh felt forced to share them online. Levine immediately denied the allegations against him, stating he'd never had an affair with anyone, but several more women came forward with proof that he'd also messaged them with flirtatious intentions. Some of these messages were also posted to TikTok. In one message, Levine admits that he shouldn't have been talking to the woman in question, though she's since deleted the video from the platform. But she did state that she had a lot more proof that Levine had flirted with her while his wife was pregnant, but she chose not to share them, stating she didn't feel comfortable revealing everything that was said between her and the singer. She also added that if anyone else was in the same position, they should come forward so that Levine's true nature could be revealed, since she felt sorry for his wife, who was none the wiser. Stroh further claimed that she was manipulated by Levine into carrying on the affair, since she was still young and naive at the time, and that she was now embarrassed to have been involved with him, since he'd shown a lack of respect and remorse when his misdeeds were brought to light. Furthermore, she shared that Levine contacted her months after the affair had ended, stating that he and his wife were expecting a baby, and that if it was a boy, he was considering naming the child Sumner after her. Levine eventually relented and released a statement in which he claimed he'd never had an affair, but that he had crossed a line with several women during a regrettable time in his life. He admitted to acting inappropriately, but assured his fans that he'd started taking steps to rectify his behavior, and that he'd never jeopardize his relationship with his wife and children ever again. Number 2. The fact that a song written by the British punk band the Sex Pistols has drawn criticism should come as no surprise, as the band is known for their controversial lyrics and anarchic behavior, as is often the case in punk culture. These days, the national anthem of England is known as God Save the King, as King Charles III has taken over the throne. But for 133 years before Charles was crowned, it was known as God Save the Queen, since the country was first ruled by Queen Victoria, and following her, Queen Elizabeth II. One would do well not to offend a country by mocking its national anthem, but the Sex Pistols seemingly couldn't care less when they released their song God Save the Queen in 1977, and almost immediately it sparked outrage, and it's easy to see why. The very first lyrics of the song read, quote, "God save the Queen, the fascist regime. They made you a moron, a potential H-bomb," which is controversial to say the least. The song then claims that the Queen is not a human being and that England has no future, which understandably drew the ire of many people who demanded that it be banned from being played on the radio. On the 31st of May, 1977, the BBC announced that the song had been banned and that it would no longer be played on the corporation's radio stations. But since the band's fans reveled in such controversy, the ban had the opposite of the desired effect, and the record sales started to soar. Some people felt that the band members should be arrested and put on trial for treason, while others went even further, stating they wanted the group to be executed for insulting the country's matriarch. The BBC released a statement in which they labeled the song as a good example of gross bad taste, and soon retailers, including Woolworths, refused to stock the album on which the song appeared. They felt that if the album was seen for sale on their store shelves, it might lead to the British public to believe they were supporting the band's view of the Queen and England in general, and hence decided to protect themselves against such misconceptions. But stores that kept the album for sale reported that it was selling faster than ever, and at one point more than 150,000 copies were being sold every day. The track reached number 2 on the official UK pop charts, though the name was never printed on the charts due to its negative message and the nature of the band's name. This only further exacerbated the situation, as the band sought to cause even more controversy. They chose the time to do this to coincide with the Queen's Silver Jubilee, and along with the owner of Virgin Records, Richard Branson, they hired a boat and set sail on the River Thames. They loaded a set of massive speakers onto the vessel and attempted to play the song as loudly as possible for all to hear, but the police soon received several complaints. They chased the boat down the river, and once the band decided to dock, all the passengers on board were taken into custody. The band only had a very short career together that lasted just 3 years, but the impact of their rebellious music is still remembered today, even if for all the wrong reasons, which is just the way punk musicians would like to be remembered. Number 1. Upon first listen, the song entitled The Way by the band Fastball seems almost carefree, as it contains lyrics such as eternal summer slacking, and they drank up the wine and they got to talking. But in reality, it's about a real-life event that ended in tragedy. The song was released in 1998, and it helped the band become known in the music industry after struggling to find success following their formation 6 years earlier. Their first album, entitled Make Your Mama Proud, failed to make an impression, but they soon started working on a follow-up. The band's members, Tony Scalzo, Miles Zuniga, and Joey Sheffield, had learned from their mistakes on the first release, and they decided to depart from their initial punk sound and started focusing on a more pop-inspired sound instead. By all accounts, it was a great idea, but it left the group's frontman, Scalzo, in a difficult situation since he wasn't accustomed to writing lyrics for pop songs. He knew that the Beatles sometimes took inspiration from newspaper articles, and he decided to give that technique a try. He found an article about a Texas couple who'd gone missing and immediately knew that he'd found what he was looking for. He read that the couple's children were desperate to find them, and he used these facts to create his own narrative. The lyrics in the song suggest that the elderly couple, who were later revealed to be Layla and Raymond Howard, had decided to disappear on purpose as they'd grown tired of society and wanted to start a new life somewhere else. 2 weeks after the article was published, though, it was revealed that Layla and Raymond had been found deceased, and the rest of the tale then came to light. It was revealed that they'd traveled from their hometown of Salado in Texas to Temple, where they attended a day festival. They had attended the festival many times in the past, and hence declined to have their son drive them there, despite his concerns being made clear. They insisted that they knew the way there, and so left without further argument. His concerns were completely justified, though, as both Layla and Raymond had started showing signs of mental instability. When they didn't return home as planned, their son became concerned and he reported them missing. An Arkansas deputy would report that he'd pulled Layla over after he spotted her driving at night with her car's headlights turned off. They'd somehow driven 500 miles in the wrong direction, and the deputy gave them directions back to Salado. 30 minutes later, the couple stopped again as Layla was driving with their high beams on, but they were let off with a warning. Neither of the deputies involved knew about the missing person report and assumed they'd simply gotten lost. A huge search effort followed, and areas as far away as 1,000 miles from Salado were searched. On the 12th of July that year, they were found by a group of hikers at the bottom of a 25-foot cliff just outside of Hot Springs, Arkansas. Raymond was still seated in the passenger seat, but Layla was found about 20 feet away, still holding her purse and keys to the car. The area was investigated, and it was found that Layla never braked before driving off the cliff, and the couple was traveling at speeds of around 50 miles per hour at the time. The Fastball album All the Pain Money Can Buy was released the following year, and it contained the song The Way, which has forever immortalized Layla and Raymond and the tragedy that befell them while they were enjoying their last road trip together. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.